the wind whistled across the open plains, dancing through the dry grass like a restless spirit searching for meaning. The sun hung low, casting long, golden shadows over the dusty trail that stretched beyond the horizon. A single rider moved through the fading light, broad hat pulled down, boots stained from long miles, a leather duster flapping gently against the rhythm of the wind. His horse was tired, its steps slow but steady. His name was Jack Hollister, a man who'd learned the language of silence, who'd spent years letting the world tell him who to be, and for the first time, he was learning to tell the world to hush. "Take a breath, cowboy," he whispered to himself. Not as a command, but as a reminder. The town of Dry Creek was just a few miles away, though from this distance, it looked more like a memory than a place. The buildings were faded, some leaning as if tired of standing, the saloon lanterns barely flickering against the coming dusk. But for Jack, this wasn't just another town. This was where everything began, and where something inside him was about to change. He hadn't come back for revenge, or money, or glory. He'd come back to remember who he was before the world made him hard. Jack slowed his horse at the edge of a ridge and looked out over the landscape. A single hawk circled above, scanning the land with patient eyes. The scent of sage and dust filled the air, mingling with the soft rhythm of the wind. His chest rose slowly, his heartbeat sinking with the quiet of the land. For years, he'd carried the weight of every choice he'd made, the fights, the long nights, the deals made in silence, the people he'd lost along the way. Out here, with the world stripped bare, that weight felt lighter. It was as if the land itself was telling him, breathe. Not everything has to be fought. Down in the valley, the small town slowly stirred with evening life. The blacksmith hammered softly, shaping metal into tools for the next day. A dog barked near the sheriff's office, echoing into the distance. The soft glow of the saloon windows invited both sinners and dreamers. Jack remembered sitting in that very saloon years ago, laughing with people who had long since disappeared into the wind. They were young, wild, untamed. Now, time had claimed most of them. He'd survived, but surviving wasn't living. And tonight, he wasn't here to run anymore. He was here to breathe. Jack guided his horse down the slope, letting the reins hang loose. He passed the old wooden church where he once stood on a cold winter night, promising someone he loved that he'd come back. He hadn't kept that promise, not out of cruelty, but because life has a way of dragging a man in directions he never meant to go. The porch boards creaked beneath the weight of his boots as he stopped by the old general store. A woman with streaks of silver in her hair stood at the doorway. She froze when she saw him, then a slow, knowing smile stretched across her face. "Well, I'll be," she said softly. "Jack Hollister. Thought the wind took you." He tipped his hat. It almost did. She laughed gently, not out of humor, but relief. Her name was Clara McGinnis. The heart of Dry Creek. She'd always kept the store running, even when the town forgot how to hope. "You've got dust in your bones, cowboy," she said, handing him a glass of water. "Sit down before the wind blows you away." He took a seat on the porch steps, letting the cool water wash the desert from his throat. It wasn't just a drink. It was a reminder of home. For the first time in a long while, Jack didn't feel like a man running from his past. He felt like a man facing it. "This place hasn't changed," he muttered. "It has," Clara said. "You just left too long ago to see it happen slow." Her words hit him like a quiet truth. He wasn't the only one who'd changed. The land had shifted too, slowly, patiently, like the wind carving stone. Jack leaned back, watching the last light of day stretch across the plains. The instrumental hum of the world, the soft creak of wood, the gentle breeze, the distant horse steps, was louder than any gunfire he'd ever heard. It was the kind of quiet that could heal a soul. Soon, others began to notice the lone cowboy sitting on the porch. The sheriff nodded at him from across the street, a man who'd once hunted him down. Now older, softer, more human. A young boy ran past with a wooden horse in hand, his laughter carrying like a melody through the evening air. Jack watched him with a bittersweet smile. He once was that boy, before the world taught him to draw faster than he could feel. The saloon doors creaked open. And the warm golden light spilled out, filling the street like liquid gold. A guitar hummed softly inside, a slow western tune. The kind that wrapped around the night like a gentle promise. Jack stood, dusted off his coat, and walked toward it, not because he was looking for a fight, but because he was looking for a moment to belong. Inside, the familiar scent of whiskey and wood wrapped around him like a memory. Old-timers lifted their glasses, a few strangers nodded politely. No one pulled a gun. No one whispered trouble. Sometimes, coming home didn't need a grand ending. Sometimes, it was just silence, music, and a chair waiting for you. Jack took a seat at the corner table. The bartender, a man with gray in his beard and kindness in his eyes, slid a glass of warm cider toward him. "Whiskey's for running," the man said with a knowing grin. "Cider's for staying." Jack smiled faintly and took the drink. The first sip burned soft and sweet, like forgiveness. Across the room, a young woman began to sing, a soft, trembling melody that floated through the air like a breeze through tall grass. Her voice wasn't perfect. It didn't need to be. It was real, raw, and warm. Jack closed his eyes and let the music sink into his bones. He remembered every fight, every long night under the stars, every dusty road that led him away from himself. But here, right now, with nothing but soft music and quiet hearts around him, the world finally slowed down. Outside, the stars began to scatter across the sky, each one a tiny flame lighting the darkness. Jack finished his drink, stepped outside, and breathed in the cool night air. The world was big, the road was long. But he'd found something worth holding on to, a moment of peace. And in the end, that's what every cowboy chases, not gold, not glory, not revenge. Just a breath. Just a place to rest his heart. As he walked back toward his horse, a small group of children ran up to him, their eyes wide with the kind of wonder only the young can carry. "Mister," one of them asked, "are you a real cowboy?" Jack kneeled down, looked the boy in the eyes, and smiled softly. "Maybe," he said. "But real cowboys don't ride forever. Sometimes, they stop to listen to the wind." The children laughed and ran off into the night, their joy echoing through the dusty street. Jack leaned against the hitching post, looking out over the quiet plains. He didn't know where the trail would lead him next. Maybe he'd stay. Maybe he'd ride again tomorrow. But tonight, he wasn't lost. He was here. He was breathing. And that was enough. As the music from the saloon drifted softly into the night, Jack whispered one last thing to the wind, something simple, something true. "Take a breath, cowboy. The world ain't always a war." And as you, dear listener, ride along on this quiet journey, let the story remind you of something bigger than the noise, of stillness, of breath, of the quiet strength in slowing down. The world can wait. Your peace can't. So, take a breath, hold on to it, and let it lead you home.